Hey, welcome to episode 133 of Fresh Air at 5. In this episode called Out in the Wild, I'm going to bring you some segments recorded out in the wild. And as I was on some adventures this week, I listened to podcasts while I was on the road and did a bit of walking in my neighborhood early on and later in the week. And yes, so stay tuned, check it out. Now, I've got a special announcement about what's going to happen with episode 134 at the end of the podcast. So listen to the end. Find out what's happening with Carpenter next week and how Fresh Air at 5 will be different. All right, talk to you soon. And without further ado, episode 133.
Hi, I'm Sam Fessich from the EduMagic Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at Fresh Air at 5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, August 6, 2023 out here on How Sound for Fresh Air at 5 with my buddy in the back, Ryan. Hey, Ryan. That's my friend that I talk about. Him and I go fishing. Our wives are over there, and we're going to meet them this morning because they went out sea kayaking 2 days ago, camping at a marine campground, and we are making our way across right now to go and visit them. Yes, we're gonna have lunch at Bowen Island, and this is beautiful. We are just north of Vancouver, British Columbia, and out on the water. There's the BC Ferry right there. You can see the BC Ferry in the distance, I think, over there probably. And yes, this is Bowen Island right behind us here. So that's all we got. Thought I'd just give you a shout out. And this is beginning episode 133 of Fresh Air at 5. That'll happen this week. Say bye, Ryan. Peace out. Have a great day. On the road, August 8, 2023 in Merritt, British Columbia, on my way to Penticton, British Columbia, dropping my daughter off for a visit with her friends. Hang on, I gotta go get information about the podcast I just listened to because I've forgotten the episode and things. Hang on. Episode 107 of the Tom Schimmer podcast is Tom talks with Carl Burke. A friend of his, Cale Burke actually, a friend of his, and consultant as well, travels the world, talks about leadership and making a difference in people's lives, not just students, but teachers as well, and the impact of having a human-centered approach to assessment and curriculum and implementing change. Tom and Cale talk about the impact of change and about making transitions from one thing to another, and about not abandoning them quickly, but looking at what's the impact and are we making an impact, because we have some initiatives that happen that we might just abandon because, well, that's not the newest shiniest thing, but have we actually impacted with that that thing that has happened that we're learning about. All right, there's a whole lot more that they talk about. I'm gonna have to go back and take a listen to more to this because Cale's got some great ideas about leadership and about transition and about making a difference and leadership from the middle. Yes, Tom also talks about visualizing a spot up front. And Tom, I pulled into Tim Hortons and I visualized the spot up front, and look at where I'm right there. Spot right up front. But you gotta believe that you're going to have success before you realize that you're gonna have success. If you don't believe you're gonna have success, then what's the point of going to do something. I'm heading out fly fishing right now this next couple days, and if I didn't believe I was going to catch a fish, then I might as well stay home and not do that. All right, that's all I got. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN August 9, 2023. I'm out here in the wild on the Coquihalla Highway on the way home from spending a couple days out in the forest doing some fishing. There's my boat, and enjoying some quiet time. So yes, heading back to home now, and the fishing wasn't as successful as I wanted to be, but I enjoyed the wild and being outside. So I think this episode of Fresh Air at 5 133 is going to be called Out in the Wild. So I'm going to call it that because I've spent a couple days now out in the wild. All right. And yes, so this on my way as I'm driving along, and I've got a podcast playing in my vehicle. Not my typical way of listening to podcasts, but I listened to the House of EdTech episode 229 with Chris Nessie, and Mr. Nessie talks with Alana Winnick while they were at ISTE 2023, and they talk about artificial intelligence in the classroom and generative age, and what does that mean as far as artificial intelligence and how we use it as a tool. Is it cheating? Is it plagiarism? They talk about these kinds of things. I don't know my school's policy yet about it. We are working on something about that, saying don't use it, but that's not sufficient because students will use it. And how do we go about addressing that? How do I go about addressing that with my students in my classroom space where I talk about media design and ADST, applied design skills and technology? This is now a technology that we need to understand, and students need to understand it so that we can use it properly and honestly. Honest is important in that. We talk about academic dishonesty, but we should talk about academic honesty, and that it's, you know, we have to be honest of how we get to a place. Process is greater than product, we talk about. It is so much important about that, and Alana and Chris talk about that. Thank you both, Alana and Chris. Appreciate hearing your conversation. I'm putting this out on Twitter for everybody to listen to. Okay, bye. Last thing for August 9, 2023. I'm home now, and if you watched the previous segment, I was on the road on the way home from fishing. So this in this segment, I'm bringing you a new to me podcast, and it is Generative Age with Alana Winnick and a co-host facilitator. I can't recall his name, Jim. I believe his name is Jim. But on episode 6 of season 1 of Generative Age, Alana talks with Donnie Piercy out of Kentucky, and Donnie is a fan favorite, and he's a fantastic guy, really knowledgeable about ed tech, and has a fantastic response to the question about how can we use AI in our classrooms for student work, and generating prompts, and how to think critically about using this. So Alana, it was great to connect with you as I listened to House of Ed Tech as you were a guest with Chris Nessie at ISTE Live, and also, now I have another podcast to listen to. It was so informative to hear Donnie and Alana talk about resources available, about ways of approaching using AI as a new technology in our classrooms. And, Donnie has some really good thoughts and, points about it, some ideas about using it in a grade 5 classroom, things that he has done, how he has done it. And you should take a listen to this, because this is not going away, as I said in the last segment, and we need to be aware of it and not afraid of it. So there's Matt Miller's book that I'm going to start digging into, and I'm going to now be listening to The Generative Age with Alana Winnick. All right, thanks, Alana. Talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN August 10, 2023, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning.
going vertical video today, just trying it out different, seeing what happens. And yeah, I'm just out walking this morning. It's plus 14 degrees Celsius, and this is after my week of not so much walking, as I was on the road out camping in the woods, in the wild, and enjoying being out and about. I had to take my daughter to Penticton to see her friends, and I made it into a fishing trip on the return, connected with a couple guys, Mark Hopley, Steve Hogg out of Penticton, who are avid fly fishers, and we went fishing for the day on Tuesday, and I caught a few fish, and then they left, and I camped overnight at a lake out in the woods, and then I went to another lake yesterday on the way home, and had a fun time. I enjoyed my time, and did some things that I really love to do. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in the space of being a fly fisher and connecting with some solid dudes in the process. And that process, those little things along the way that get you to where you are, like I was listening to episode 66 just now of Evolving with Gratitude, as Lainey Rowell had Maxwell Roach on, and he talks about small steps of learning and how those small steps of learning and the things that we do in our life that seem insignificant at that moment in time build over time to allow you to get to a place where you are able to connect with people and be in their space. And it's a privilege and it's an opportunity. Having a podcast, was not a small step. It took time over time and consistency of certain things, and here we are. So you should go take a listen to Maxwell Roach talk on episode 66 of Evolving with Gratitude. He has, got full of joy and gratefulness and fantasticness, and him and Lainey, they have a fantastic conversation, and it is just heartwarming to hear him talk about these things. All right, with that, I'm gone. Okay, have a good day. Bye. Okay, one more thing for August 10, 2023. Continuing my thoughts on episode 66 of Evolving with Gratitude, as Maxwell Roach was the guest, and he has John Abe's Learning Center program that, he does works with his own kids and has developed some content that has allowed him to have a business of being an educator in an education space. He talks about how we get to those places by, doing small things that at the moment in time don't seem like work, but after you look back, you go, wow, we got a long ways. That's a challenge and a task for educators working with students, is to bring the learning to a bite-sized bit that they can learn it and build on it day after day. And then after a while, they're like, wow, how did we get here? And you look back at the journey. The process is so important, so important. And I like, Max, how you talked about looking at, the small stages of the process of you learning something, and how you can break down the process of learning that thing as maybe a program for yourself. How do you go about gathering information? How do you go about doing a thing that then those skills of learning, the skills of learning, can be applied to other areas of need in your life? So yeah, that's maybe something I'm going to dig into with my students with this fall, is how do we learn? How do we go about learning a thing? And it's not, academically driven. It could be like, how do I learn to tie flies? How do I learn how to go fishing? How do I learn to set up my fishing boat? And, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a process and over time, about owning other boats and getting to the place where I am today. All right. Thanks for listening again. Have a great day. And then we'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, August 11, 2023. Welcome to Friday. It's a beautiful day here in British Columbia, out for fresh air at 5, walking out in a path, Discovery Trail here in Abbotsford. And along the sides,
we've got blackberry bushes. We've got all these blackberry bushes. You can see all the blackberries that are along here, and it's super fantastic because at this time of year we can get a good harvest. This is what I just picked in about 30 seconds as I was walking along here, some blackberries. I've got a good 12 blackberries in my hand that I'm gonna pop in my mouth in a moment, and that is my novelty nature note that I am going to share this morning as I'm walking, and that's in conjunction with me listening to Teaching Outdoors with Lauren McLean, as Lauren brings us an episode that came out, I think it was today, as she was talking with Rachel Tidd, who is the author of Wild Discovery Learning, I believe. If not, check the show notes for the exact title of her website and her book that she's written. And it was great to hear you, Rachel, talk about outdoor education in everything from urban to residential to even rural and out in the forest, and looking at the different spaces that we can do outdoor education. Right here, I had no idea about blackberries before I moved to British Columbia and moved into this neighborhood. And when we had my parents out, my mom saw them and was like, whoa, there's blackberries there. I can go pick them. So she would come and in August pick buckets of blackberries for free along the paths in our neighborhood. And it was so fantastic that we could eat blackberries. They're not my favorite berry. I actually like blueberries best. But they're very, very good. And on a day like this, I can get a little snack as I'm walking along. So Rachel and Lauren talk all about outdoor education strategies, ways of taking the curriculum outside, and the personal connection is so important with our own families and how we raise our kids and what do we do with them and how do we find ways of getting them to learn. All right, I got more coming up, so hang on a second. All right, one more thing for August 11, 2023. This week, I've called it Out in the Wild, or something like that along those lines. And it has to do with getting outside and doing things that are like irregular for me. And it started on Sunday as I brought you the first segment from the water as we were sitting out in Howe Sound just off of Vancouver and floating and paddling out to meet our wives who were camping at a marine park. So that was a fantastic day. We did have an opportunity to cross paths with a couple of orcas out in the ocean. Those are killer whales, and that was so cool to see because people, they kayak for many years and don't see the wildlife like that. But on my first outing and my wife's first outing, even 2-3 years ago, she saw orcas on our first day as well as her friend Joanne. So that was super fantastic. All right, this coming week, I'm going to take a change of course with Fresh Air at 5. So don't be disappointed. I will be bringing you an episode of Fresh Air at 5, though it won't be it'll only be at the end of the week. It won't be dailies because I am going to be out in the wild. We're going to be out north of the Sunshine Coast, at the very top of the Sunshine Coast, up in Powell River area near Lund, a little town called Lund. We've got some friends there. We're going to go visit with them for a little bit on Sunday. And then on Monday, we are going to put our sea kayaks into the ocean and we're going to paddle for 5 days and nights. We're going to be going from Marine Park to Marine Park Campground and enjoying that Desolation Sound. Lots of things that it's going to offer. I have some expectation, but there's also things that I'm going to see that I have no idea about what we're going to see. There's 8 of us adults going. It's going to be fantastic as we go. So this next couple days is prep. Today I got to do some prep for that, packing our tent, all of our backpacking stuff, getting it kayak ready. I'm going to bring you an episode at the end of next week, episode 134, but it'll be at the end of the week only, probably, and be released maybe on Sunday, not on Friday. That's all I got. Hang on. The last thing for August 11, 2023. So as you can tell, vacation has started for Brian, and I'm thankful and grateful for this opportunity that I have in the summer to slow it down and to step away from school. I taught summer session and had some busy times in late July and early August, but we got through those and worked with students, got them to make some progress on their chemistry courses. I put the notice up saying that I'll be back in September for all the rest of my students that are not done, and they can continue working in August, but I am off. So yes, like I said, I'll be bringing you an episode of Fresh Air at 5 from the Out in the Wild. It'll be the whole version at the end of the week, and I might put a YouTube video up of that and a link to a tweet. I'll tweet that out so that you can watch that, but that'll also be the content for my podcast. So yes, appreciate you. Thanks so much for your daily watches. It really means a lot to me. It brings me joy to know that I'm connecting with people. I can't tell everybody because I don't hear from many, but if you find value in this, and you're listening to this right now, it would be cool if you could listen and get a sense of who you are and where you're at. That would be fantastic. All right, that's all I've got for today, and I'm gonna go home and finish editing episode 133 here and put it up on Spotify, and the audio of that up tonight, and so that you can listen to that. All right, thanks so much for and I appreciate you. Have a fabulous day. Okay, Carpenter out. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.